I love to negotiate things.
Nothing has changed.
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission.
All my energy's going to leading this party.
When there are no ceilings, the sky's the limit.
Every day we watch them on the world stage. But what do we actually see of our leaders? What messages are they conveying without even realizing it? Here we pick apart 7 people of 2017 whose every move is broadcast around the world. We uncover the coded messages in their body language. And where better to start than with the most watched man on earth? Everything Donald Trump does is about one thing: proving that he's the ultimate alpha. He wants to be the undisputed leader of the pack, and it's clear in everything he does. Trump needs to look big and tough. He does this by standing tall and moving slowly. He also puts on his alpha face, jutting out his chin and narrowing his eyes. It's his way of looking serious and threatening, and reminding everyone that he's the guy who deserves to be in charge. As part of this, Trump needs to dominate every person he meets. That's where his infamous yank shake comes in. It's all about the president imposing himself on other people. During a handshake, Trump will often pat the other person's hand, sometimes repeatedly, and he holds on for a long time. When he met the Japanese Prime Minister, Trump made the handshake last a full 19 seconds. But look how many times he pats Shinzo Abe's hand. Pats like these pretend to be a sign of affection, but their real purpose is to remind the other person who's in charge.
I love to negotiate things. I do it really well and all that stuff.
Trump has a broad repertoire of hand gestures. He often adopts an open arm posture, which gives the impression that he wants to embrace everyone and he's got nothing to hide. All of Trump's gestures and movements are meant to convey one thing: power.
Mistakes
Wait. Just wait.
One of his favorites is this, the erect index finger. It shows that he won't be interrupted. Then there's the ring sign, where the tips of the thumb and forefinger are brought together. Now, the president uses this precision grip to give the impression that he can handle delicate problems. Like most people in power, Trump has an ambivalent attitude to smiling. He instinctively recognizes that smiling is an appeasement signal, a way of announcing that one's not a threat, which is definitely not the message that Trump wants to send. When he's in the public eye, Trump usually resorts to his trademark zip smile, which is much less submissive. And if you watch him closely, you'll see that his zip smiles are sometimes accompanied by a puckered chin. This is a defensive facial action. People pucker their chin when they expect to be attacked, either literally or figuratively. It's their way of defending themselves. There are glimpses of vulnerability underneath the alpha facade, but Trump's key motivator is that he is top dog and he wants everyone to know it. Now, from the strutting alpha male to a leader who struggles to project confidence. When Theresa May feels threatened, her first instinct is to retreat into herself. As the Prime Minister has faced setbacks, we've seen signs in her body language. She has a stooping, almost concave posture, and she frequently adopts this tortoise-like position by lowering her head. This is a defensive response because it's designed to protect one of the most vulnerable parts of the body, the neck. It's as if the sheer weight of her responsibilities and the criticism leveled against her are literally dragging her down.
Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed.
But it wasn't always like this. Compare her present posture to how she appears when she becomes Prime Minister. Back then, she walks tall and stands more erect, sending out messages of confidence and competence. Nowadays, Notice how she raises her shoulders when she's talking about a challenging situation. This is another involuntary action that's designed to protect the neck. It tells us that she's feeling threatened by the topic under discussion. May has other ways of using her body to protect or comfort herself in times of stress, and it's particularly telling around her mouth. Firstly, there are the fake smiles. We can tell that they're not genuine because they appear and disappear abruptly. One of the main functions of fake smiles is to conceal negative emotions. Here May is smiling to cover up the fact that she's struggling. She also has a habit, when waiting to speak, of biting the inside of her mouth. This is a restraining, self-comforting action. It's her way of getting a grip on herself and making sure that she doesn't say the wrong thing. When she's caught out by a difficult question, she betrays her unease. Look at what happens when she's asked if she would vote for Brexit a second time round.
Well, I don't answer hypothetical questions.
She fleetingly pulls the corners of her mouth down. Now that is a fear grimace. It's a sign that she wasn't expecting the question and doesn't really know how to answer it.
Our economy is back on track. Sounds as if my voice isn't on track.
For all her efforts to project an image of strength and resolve in what she says, May's body language tells a very different story. She feels vulnerable and she wants to disappear into her shell. Female leaders face a real conundrum: how to be likable and powerful. It's cast a constant shadow over Hillary Clinton's career. Hillary Clinton would never have got to where she did if she wasn't a skilled communicator. But when it came to winning the biggest prize of all, the presidency, she was outmaneuvered in the body language battle. On the surface, Hillary seems to know all the tricks. When she's addressing a large crowd, she uses a number of distance signals. These include her exaggerated facial expressions, which are clearly visible even to people far away, and her habit of pointing and smiling at people in the audience. Here, Hillary is probably singling out phantom friends rather than people she actually knows. But the technique works because it makes her look like a friendly politician who really cares about individuals. And here's another of Hillary's distance signals, her drop-jaw smile, where the mouth is opened wide. This makes it look like she's laughing, enabling her smiles to absorb some of the contagious properties of laughter and therefore to become much more infectious. She uses her body language to connect with voters, but she can't match Trump's sheer strength.
Did anybody see that debate last night?
He comes across as powerful, and Clinton seems unnecessarily submissive. For a start, Trump looks bigger, moves slowly, and cultivates an air of gravitas.
By the end of this evening, I'm going to be blamed for everything that's ever happened.
Why not?
Why not?
During the debates, Trump rarely smiles. Clinton, by contrast, is smiling broadly.
Secretary Clinton.
Woo, okay.
Hillary crosses the floor to get closer to the person who's just asked a question. Trump hovers over her with his eyes narrowed and a menacing look on his face. Look how she often widens her eyes for emphasis. Now, while this helps to highlight the points she's making, it also gives her a wide-eyed expression that psychologists call the baby face. The problem for Hillary is that many of her characteristic behaviors are potentially submissive signals. This makes her look like someone who's in need of protection rather than someone who can be relied upon to deliver it. Hillary is undoubtedly a seasoned politician. Most of the time, she manages to conceal her true feelings. Here she's giving her concession speech. She's doing her best to appear composed, but notice how her smiling is reduced. Look closely and you'll see a tiny, unconscious gesture, the invisible tear wipe. Now, people do this when they're feeling unhappy and they don't want anybody to know. One reason why Hillary failed to win the race for the White House is that she was outmaneuvered in the body language stakes. When voters were looking for a tough guy president, Hillary's submissive body language really just didn't fit the bill. If you believe that there were two men who stopped Hillary Clinton winning the presidency, here is the second, a man who makes machismo the focal point of his body language. Vladimir Putin is Russia's real-life action man. Anyway, that's what he wants people to think. It's a carefully crafted image that aims to show off the sheer variety of his talents. He can put his hand to anything, no matter how difficult. It's all designed to show that Putin is very different from those clapped-out Russian leaders of the past. Putin is the man in charge. We often see him speaking while his subordinates listen in deferential silence. These scenes create an impression of power distance, suggesting that all important national decisions issue from Putin and are merely rubber-stamped by his faceless committee. Notice the way Putin walks, with the rolling gait of a sailor, his left arm swinging much further than his right. Now, some people say that this is a hangover from his days in the KGB, when the agents were taught to walk with their right hand poised and ready to reach for a hidden gun. Whether or not that's true, Putin's walking style certainly makes him appear youthful, energetic, and purposeful, like a man on a mission. And look at this. In asserting his dominance, every so often when he greets someone, he'll raise his hand above the other person's and then swoop down for the handshake. It's his way of showing who's boss. There's no doubt that Putin is a cool customer, but although he tries to appear detached, his body language does sometimes give him away. Notice Putin's posture. Here the French president, Emmanuel Macron, has oriented his whole body towards Putin. Macron is fully engaged. But while the top half of Putin's body, the part that's on show, is leaning towards Macron, the bottom half, which is more hidden, remains uninvolved. It's got its own agenda. This provides a revealing clue to Putin's makeup, a man who presents one side of himself while effortlessly concealing another. But look at how he shifts his feet every now and then when he's entertaining foreign heads of state. These foot fidgets are what psychologists call unconscious intention movements. They reveal that Putin is impatient or bored, and that his disloyal feet are exposing his secret intention, which is to get the hell out of there. Russia hasn't had such a youthful and energetic leader since the days of Peter the Great, and Putin knows that the Russian people love it. That's why he presents himself as a man who's capable of taking on any challenge and succeeding. He's Russia's action man, or, as Trump might say, a guy who definitely isn't a loser. After the break, we uncover the ruler of the Hermit Kingdom and what happens when Melania's mask slips. "2017 was the year when North Korea ramped up the rhetoric. In a country shrouded in secrecy, we see just enough to get an insight into what life is really like. North Korea is like a medieval feudal kingdom. First, there's the clothes. The costume worn by the supreme leader Kim Jong-un, like that of a king, is designed to make him look very different from everyone else. While his outfit is unique, his subjects are all in uniform. The same disparity is reflected in people's behavior. All the attention is focused on Kim Jong-un, hardly ever on other individuals or the people around him. Where he goes, others follow. What he does, others copy. There are also cases of mood contagion. For example, where the supreme leader is amused and others mirror his behavior. When Kim Jong-un appears, the adoring crowd immediately starts clapping, and he joins in. But notice the difference in clapping styles. While his loyal subjects all raise their hands and clap them symmetrically, the supreme leader's hands are lowered, with one hand clapping on the other. His applause can afford to be relaxed, but theirs needs to be conspicuous and enthusiastic. Symmetry in behavior is a universal feature of deference. Here, he's the only person smoking. Nobody else is allowed to smoke because to do so would reduce the social distance between the ruler and the ruled. With greetings, it's typically Kim Jong-un who makes the first move. That's his prerogative as the most important person present. Here he initiates a handshake with Dennis Rodman, the visiting American basketball player. So what happens when Rodman oversteps the mark and gives the supreme leader a big hug? Well, Kim Jong-un reacts by patting Rodman on the back several times. Pats of this nature pretend to be a sign of friendship, but they're actually a disguised release signal. In a rigidly autocratic country like North Korea, you'd expect the ruler to remain austere and aloof. In fact, almost everywhere he goes, Kim Jong-un wears a big, beaming smile, very similar, in fact, to the cheerful expressions depicted on the statues of his revered father and grandfather. Everything in North Korea is dedicated to ensuring conformity in people's opinions and beliefs, but especially in their appearance and behavior. Everybody must act together. Nobody must step out of line or call into question the divine right of the supreme leader. From the all-powerful Kim Jong-un to a leader who makes a virtue of his normality. Jeremy Corbyn's biggest selling point is that he comes across as just a normal bloke. He makes it look like he's unpretentious and down-to-earth, as comfortable munching biscuits in a stranger's living room as joining in with a child's violin lesson. His supporters love it, because for them, it's all about authenticity.
Very placid.
Recognizing this, Corbyn engages people on a personal level and adopts an easygoing manner. Whenever there's a difference in status, it's an unwritten rule that the more important person has the right to touch or pat the less important person. That's precisely what we see happening here. Although he may not see it that way, Corbyn is exercising his right to pat other people and not to be patted by them. So look what happens when the vicar makes a move to pat Corbyn, but thinks better of it and quickly withdraws his hand. He's hesitating because he is acknowledging Corbyn's status. There are other subtle ways that Corbyn asserts his dominance. When faced with a difficult question, we often find him narrowing his eyes and lowering his eyebrows so that he appears to be more dominant. There's lots of frowning. Then there are the emphatic head dips, which are designed to stress the points he's making.
I'll be very proud to put this manifesto into action by legislation.
The hand gestures are often forceful. By displaying his knuckles, he's presenting the hard, manly features of his hands. It's therefore a disguised threat signal. Corbyn illustrates a rather interesting gender difference in politics. While most women politicians want to come across as approachable, Corbyn and other male politicians aren't usually afraid to show their anger. So look what happens when someone upsets him by asking the same question repeatedly.
I've given you a very, very clear answer, yes.
He briefly shows his annoyance by producing an agonistic stare. This facial expression only appears for a fraction of a second, and is immediately replaced by a smile. This suggests that while Corbyn wants to warn the interviewer off, he's more concerned about appearing calm and composed. Although it's obvious that Jeremy Corbyn loves being the leader of the party, there's also evidence to show that he feels ambivalent about the adulation that comes from being in charge.
We bring the conference to order, if you think.
But there's nothing really surprising about this. After all, it's exactly what you'd expect from a normal bloke who's had greatness thrust upon him. Isn't it? If Jeremy Corbyn is a normal bloke, Melania Trump is otherworldly, or at the very least, detached from the world around her. Melania isn't an easy person to read. That's because she works so hard not to give anything away. Out in public, she's always wearing a mask. Melania and her sunglasses are almost inseparable. She even wears them at night. it seems like she doesn't want to be noticed. Her disguise is so effective that even her own husband seems not to notice that she's there. Look at how Trump walks on ahead when they visit the Obamas at the White House. He leaves her to trail along after him. And here again, when the couple arrive in Rome, he forgets all about her and jumps into the presidential limo, leaving Melania to fend for herself. Here she's standing next to her husband, and what does he say?
Melania really wanted to be with us. It's really touched her heart what's gone on, and we've seen the devastation.
Despite her colourful wardrobe, Melania tries to blend into the background, and it works. The mask does slip on occasion, though. Look at how Trump turns around during the inauguration, and Melania beams back at him. When he turns away, her face drops. What's all this about? Well, it turns out that the president had actually singled out his daughter, Ivanka, and that's why Melania seemed so dejected. Her husband wasn't meant to see this, but now she's constantly on camera and can easily be caught off guard.
We have to start with Melania, what she puts up with. Oh.
If we look closely at Melania, we can pick up other clues to the state of the Trumps' relationship. We know that the president is nervous about walking downstairs. Look at what happens when they arrive in Italy. He reaches out for his wife's support. Melania times it perfectly, quickly rearranging her hair so that she doesn't have to offer her husband a helping hand. It happens again on the Middle East tour. When Trump reaches out to Melania, she flicks his hand away. If we go further back, we can see why. Earlier on, Trump had actually cut Melania off, pushing her off the red carpet. So when Trump offers his hand, she rejects it. A quiet signal that the world wouldn't normally see, but the camera captures. Melania doesn't crave the spotlight, but now she's in it. She's naturally enigmatic and likes to hide behind a carefully manicured exterior.
It will be my honor and privilege to serve this country.
As First Lady, she can't cover up her true feelings all the time, and every so often, the mask slips. Despite their best efforts, people in the spotlight always give something away. You can be sure that there are secrets waiting to be uncovered.